Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is the second part of AWS Inspector where we will talk about how AWS Inspector scans for Lambda code vulnerabilities. If you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe and like, share, comment on this video. In my previous tutorial, I have explained AWS Inspector and its features. Please check out the video if you have not seen it yet. For the second part here in this video, we will scan our Lambda functions for our code vulnerabilities. AWS Inspector uses CodeGuru library to detect and scan for exploits. Also, it gives us the CWS code related to the vulnerabilities and well documentation about the exploitation. We can download all the findings and process it further. We will go through in details how it does that and what are the steps involved. Also, we will discuss about couple of issues that AWS CodeGuru library might have. This is very important. I really felt that this is not 100% what it claims to be. There are still some improvements needed for this library. So let's go and check it out how everything happens. So in this part of exercise, what we are going to do, we are going to spin up couple of lambdas and then we are going to scan those particular lambdas with AWS Inspector. So we will do both standard scanning and code scanning and we will check the results for any vulnerabilities. Now, how we are going to do it? So we will use AWS Amazon CodeGuru library to inject some vulnerabilities in our Lambda. So Amazon CodeGuru provides couple of libraries, already well-defined libraries and well-defined vulnerabilities which we can inject directly into the Lambda function and can check if AWS Inspector are detecting them. We will also go through the documentation of Amazon CodeGuru that provides where it shows what type of vulnerabilities it will detect, and I will make couple of examples out of it, and maybe I can show you what type of vulnerabilities it detects in practical. But very important thing to remember here, I will show couple of vulnerabilities that from Amazon CodeGuru library it detects as it is, as it claims, but I will show another set of examples where Amazon CodeGuru claims that it will show the vulnerabilities, but actually it does not show that. So that's also kind of a bug, I suppose, from Inspector with this Amazon CodeGuru library. But we will talk about this in details. So if you remember, that's why I told in my first video that Amazon Inspector still needs some upgradation or still needs some improvement, and by improvement I mean this one. So we will talk about this in details. To follow through this lecture, you need to do a couple of steps, and these are the steps that we will follow. So the first one is we will spin up couple of Lambda functions, and then we will intentionally inject some vulnerability code into the Lambda functions, and then we will activate our inspector to scan our lambdas for the vulnerabilities, and we will check for the Lambda standard scanning and the code scanning as well, and we will see the results whether either AWS Inspector actually shows the vulnerabilities as it claims. And then issues with AWS Inspector CodeGuru library. Yes, this also we will explain, or I will try to explain that there are some issues with AWS Inspector with this CodeGuru library. It does not detect as it claims. We will see that in real. And then if everything is done, we will deactivate AWS Inspector. So that's all in a nutshell we will going to do. Now let's go to AWS Management Console and get our hands dirty. Okay, so right now I'm inside my AWS Management Console, and as per the first step, we will spin up couple of Lambda functions. So I will spin up the Lambda functions first with the vulnerability code. Then we will go through all the Lambda functions one by one, and I will compare it with the CodeGuru documentation that AWS will refer to check the vulnerabilities and show you where the AWS document or where the CodeGuru library is detecting the vulnerabilities, and inspector should detect the vulnerabilities. So please remember, inspector should. I am not saying that inspector will detect it, but inspector should detect the vulnerabilities. But we will check if inspector at all detect all the vulnerabilities or not. So let's go ahead and spin up some Lambda function with vulnerability code. So right now, if you see, I have spin up 6 Lambda functions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this one is the default one. This was already there. So this is my 6 Lambda function, and each of them have a vulnerability in their code. So what I will do, I will go ahead and I will go inside each and every one, and I will show you the CodeGuru library as well, where it says which kind of vulnerability it is, and it should show up in AWS Inspector with a severity score. Now let's go ahead and maybe check the first one, a secret access key exploit. So what does it mean? Inside the function, if we see here, it is importing JSON and Boto3, then it is non-compliant. Why? Because I have injected a sample key, which is kind of AWS access key or maybe secret key, and I have injected and I have directly used it without any environment variable or without any secrets manager. I have directly imported the sample key here. So this is kind of a non-compliant. So now let's go to CodeGuru library and see what kind of compliance it is. So I have mainly used all the function name as the exploitation, but this one I did not. So I have to check this one. So let's go ahead and the CodeGuru documentation. Okay, so this is the one where it says that hard-coded credentials. The severity is critical, and what it says is that access credentials such as password and access keys like this one not to be hard-coded in the source code. Whether it should be hard-coded may cause leakage after removing them. And this is because version control system might retain the older version. So Lambda has a version control system. So if you at least remove the Lambda from your current version, it might still have the Lambda function in your version control, and the credential might get leaked. So the remediation is the credential must be stored securely and obtained from the runtime environment, whether it is the environment variable or secrets manager or parameters stored anywhere. Now, very interesting thing to see here, the category of this vulnerability is security category. So obviously it should be a access key or secret key issue. So it should be a security issue. And it is also given what kind of CWE score or CVE score it has. So it has a CVE score of 798. So we can go inside the CVE score directly, and it shows like the details of the CVE, what kind of CVE violation it is, and we can get extra cautious while doing our code in future. And we can take a look into this documentation from the CVE, and we can check like what kind of vulnerability it is and how to avoid that. And it has also some kind of example as well, like this is from the Oracle Scott Tiger. This is the default access key and secret key. We should not use this one. Like this one, this is in C programming language C. If we have in password, if we have hard-coded the password here, then it shows an example. This is from Java. This is also very important. And so lots of programming languages and every example is given here in this documentation, and it shows that this particular CVE code or this particular CVE 798 it is used for hard-coded credential checking, and this is a vulnerability of critical severity. So this is what it says in the CodeGuru library. So the concept is inspector will check this CodeGuru library, and if it has this vulnerability documented here, it should also detect the Lambda function that has the vulnerability and show up in its screen. So this is the first Lambda function. Now let's go. So as per the concept, this particular Lambda function should show up in inspector console as a vulnerability. Now let's go ahead and check the next function. So my next function is improper privilege management. Now I have given this name as it is the vulnerabilities. So now let's go to CodeGuru library and check for the vulnerabilities. So I am in my CodeGuru library, and it says that this is incompliant because we are using the root user, and we are actually trying to elevate the root user privilege. So this is what it says, that the privilege escalation occurs when a malicious user exploits a bug, design flow, or an operating system to gain elevated access to the system. So what we are doing, we are gaining elevated access to this root user. So this is a vulnerability, and this is a high severity security vulnerability. It has also a CVE score associated with it. So if we go inside this CVE score, we can check what kind of vulnerability it is and the details out of it. So AWS Inspector, as per the CodeGuru library, should also show this Lambda function that I spin up here. as a vulnerable high vulnerability code inside this lambda function. Now let's go to the third one. In third, I have given the resource leak, and let's go to the CodeGuru library now. So this one is the resource leak. This is a medium severity vulnerability where it shows that if we have created one resource and directly opened it without closing the file, then might be the resource leakage happen. So this is what it says, that the allocated resources are not released properly. That means it is not closed. This can slow down or crash your system. So this is a medium side of vulnerability, and it has a CVE score attached to it. So this also should show up in our inspector console. Now let's go ahead and check for the fourth one, where it says that AWS credentials locked. Okay, this is a very high vulnerability. I think what it does is that it is taking the credentials from the session and then it is logging them in our CloudWatch logs. If this Lambda is logging into CloudWatch, so in CloudWatch we will be able to see this access key and secret key. And what kind of vulnerability it is? Let's go to CodeGuru now. So this is the CodeGuru. It says that this is a high security vulnerability, and it has a CWE attached to it. It's CVE 255. It says that the credentials management error, and it says that if this will happen if you are logging your access key and secret key into your loggers. So this is kind of vulnerability that CodeGuru detects, and this should also show up in AWS Inspector as per this documentation. Now let's do our fifth one, where it says that insecure hashing. What is hashing is that hashing is kind of an algorithm where you can hash your password, this hashing algorithm, and it will store the password into a secure string rather than storing it in a raw format. It will store the password in a secure string, and within that it will use this hashing algorithm of SHA 224. Now let's go to documentation. So this is the CodeGuru documentation. It says that insecure hashing is a medium security vulnerability, and it has a CWE score 327 and 328 attached to it, and it is also showing that if we use the hashing algorithm of 224 or which is lesser vulnerable, then it will show up in the AWS management or inspector console as a vulnerable. So this, as per this CodeGuru documentation, this will also should show up in our inspector console. Now let's see. Now let's check our sixth function, where it shows the hard-coded IP address. So we have a hard-coded IP address given, and what it says in CodeGuru, let's check. So I am inside my CodeGuru now, and it says that this is a security medium vulnerability, and it shows that if there are any hard-coded IP address, this might get changed. Then the IP address should not be hard-coded in our source code, rather than somewhere else we can store. But this is a security vulnerability as well. Now this will also show up as per this documentation in inspector console. Now let's go back to all our Lambda functions. So we have 6 Lambda functions, and as per the CodeGuru documentation that I have shown, this 6 Lambda function should show up in this inspector console if we activate inspector. One more important thing is about this CodeGuru documentation. This CodeGuru documentation AWS hosts in their docs.amazon.com here. And if you go inside this CodeGuru, you will see 3 flavors: Java detectors, Python detectors, and JavaScript. I am using in this tutorial as Python detector. So if you click on Python detectors, it will open this page, and here you will be able to see the kind of vulnerabilities that the documentation has, and it will detect with this CodeGuru library. So from starting from improper privilege management, lots of improper error handling, lots of things are there. If they claim that it will be detected by AWS Inspector, and if there are any kind of escalation happens, like the CWE score also is there. So it's not only that CodeGuru claims, you can also view the CVE score, and you can go inside of it and you can get details out of it, like what kind of vulnerabilities it is and how to mitigate that. So the mitigation is also given just below, how to mitigate this one, this one, but I will not do the mitigation. Please go ahead and do it by yourself and let me know if the mitigation works. If you mitigate by this one, by the way that they say, if that works, please let me know in the comment section if that works. then I will also try, but I'm pretty sure this will work. This is very good documentation that they have. Now let's go ahead and to our management console. And right now I'm in my management console and the Lambda is there. Now let's go ahead and configure inspector. And I'm inside my inspector console. What I will do, go ahead and I will select get started, and I will just activate inspector. Now my inspector is activated. As we see right now, there is nothing. So if we go to account management, if you remember from the part 1 of this video, we can see that everything is activated. That is, the inspector status is activated, EC2 scanning is activated, ECR as well, and Lambda standard and code scanning is activated. Now, if we go inside of this tab, like the Lambda function, it shows here like what kind of vulnerabilities it has detected. So the first tab is for standard scanning, and standard scanning, I can see that all 7 Lambda function, 6 we have spin up and the one already there, it has already detected, and right now the status is scanning. But in the all section, it already shows that there are no findings. If we go to the second page, this is the another 2, and it says that no findings. Now let's go ahead and check for the code scanning, and under the code scanning it does not show anything right now that whether it finds some vulnerabilities or not, but it will show up here. So let's wait for some time and I will come back when the scanning is done. Okay, now I can see that the code scanning is active, and the scanning is also shows me this 7 Lambda function, and this one is not needed. No, fine, this one is not needed. But if I go to all, I can see my 7th function is there, 1 2 3 4 5, and in the page 2 I have another 2. But if you see here, for the AWS credentials logged, it did not detect it. It detected no findings. Hard-coded IP address, no findings. Insecure hashing, no finding. But for improper privilege management, it has finding. Resource leakage, it has finding. And secret access exploit, that is the first function, it finds something. Now let's go ahead and check the findings. To check the findings, we can directly go from here, or we can go from under findings. If we go inside this all findings, we will be able to see the findings that it has detected. Now the first one, let's check for this one. So for this one, secret access exploit, that means this function has a hard-coded credentials. That's what it detected. And let's go to the function now. Now if we go to the function, we see that this is the function secret access exploit, and if we open the function, we can see that yes, it has a secret access key. Somehow it is invalid access key anyway, but somehow it has detected that the secret access key is there and it is non-compliant. So as it is non-compliant, it has shows a CV score with this one 798 hard-coded credentials, and it shows up in my report. Now the second one is the improper privilege management. If we go back to our function, we see this one, improper privilege management, where we have set our root user ID some privilege access. We have tried to gain the privilege access, and it says that it is not proper, it is non-compliant, and the process of user ID, so this is non-compliant, and this has also detected in the inspector console that this is not compliance. Now the last one is the resource leak. Now we can see that this particular function resource leak, it is also just opening the file but without closing this one. So it can crash the machine, or it can crash the server. So this is also non-compliant. It has also shown this one with the CVE score. It is a medium severity. With the CVE score, we can directly click on the CVE score and check here what is the CVE score. It will give us a good overview of what is the CV score and how to mitigate this one, and also it will show here. I'm not sure why it is not showing up here, but it should show the code here as well. Okay, now let's go ahead and check this scanning again, and we go to account management and Lambda function, and it shows that still for this 3 function AWS credentials logged, there are no findings. That means it is okay as per inspector. This is okay. We have seen in the CodeGuru library that if there are AWS credentials logged somewhere in the logging, it should show up in the inspector console. But right now we can see that this function, AWS credentials logged, we can go again to the function. This one, it is already logging the credentials, whatever it is getting from the session, but still in inspector console, it is showing that no findings. That means somehow the CodeGuru library is not working. Well, as at least it's not working for me. So we can see that hard-coded IP address. This is another function. We can go to the function and we see that hard-coded IP address, and inside the function we have seen that we have hard-coded one IP address, and as per CodeGuru documentation, this should also show up in inspector. This is a medium security vulnerability. This should show up in the inspector, but I can see that this function is not showing up and it says that no findings for this function. Similarly for insecure hashing, so we have our function insecure hashing where we have used a hashing algorithm, but this is not secure, but still it shows that no findings. So this is my overall observation, that sometimes this CodeGuru library with inspector works as it should, but sometimes it detects the vulnerability, but not all of them. I'm not sure if you also face this kind of issue while doing that. Please let me know in the comment section what are your thoughts. But I see that AWS Inspector needs some improvement in this area. Because whether it has the hard-coded IP address or the credentials logged in the CloudWatch log, it is still a very valid vulnerable exploitation, and we should not do that. And inspector should report that as soon as it detects that. But I can see, or we have seen here that it did not detect it. It shows that there are no findings. That means it is not working properly. Maybe I am doing some mistake, or maybe the library is not working as it is. I don't know. So let me know in the comment section if you find that there are some workaround with it, or if we can make it work. Let me know. So this is my observation, that it still needs some improvement. So this is not foolproof. Okay, this is what actually I wanted to show in this video, that how we can use AWS Inspector to check our Lambda code for vulnerabilities. So this is it. Now I will show you one more important part, is that suppose sometimes in use cases we want to use one Lambda function without attaching it to inspector. Like we don't want inspector to scan the Lambda function. So what to do? What to do in that case? So in that case, we have to give Lambda function one tag. If we give that tag, then AWS Inspector will not detect that, or will not take the Lambda function as it is. Now, what are the two tags? Now let's go ahead in the Lambda function and give the tags for inclusion. So we have two tags mainly, one for standard scanning exclusion and one for code scanning exclusion. So we will select two Lambda functions, and within that two, I will give one of them that standard scanning exclusion and another one the code scanning exclusion. So whenever I will give the tag, AWS Inspector will detect that it has the Lambda function has the tag, and it will not scan the Lambda function for that particular scanning, whether it is standard or code. Now let's go ahead to the Lambda function and give the tags. So again, I will go to my first function. This function has been detected in code scanning and as an exploitation. So what I will do, I will give this function a tag, then it will not detect the function for code scanning. So let me go ahead in the configuration and then tags and give the tag. So to give the tag, I have to click on add a new tag, and in the key section, we have to give inspector exclusion, and then the value should be lambda code scanning. That means inspector should exclude this function for lambda code scanning. I will save this one, and I will do it for another function similar way for standard scanning. So within this 6, I remembered that hard-coded IP address did not detect it in the code. So let's go ahead and give this hard-coded IP address as a standard scanning exclusion. So to give standard scanning exclusion, I have to add another tag. The key should be inspector exclusion, and the value should be lambda standard scanning. So inspector should exclude from Lambda standard scanning to this function. So I will save this one. Now let's go ahead and check AWS Inspector console if this two Lambda function has been excluded from standard and code scanning. So right now I'm inside my inspector console, and under account management, similar way, under settings account management, if we come to the Lambda function, we can see that right now there are not scanning is one Lambda function has been detected. So for standard scanning, we have given hard-coded IP address the particular tag in inspector exclusion standard scanning. So it has excluded this function from scanning, standard scanning. And for code scanning, I can also see in the not scanning section, I have one Lambda function. So in the secret access exploit, so this one earlier, if you remember, it was scanning this function and it detected it, but right now it has inspector this one Lambda code scanning. Let me just open. Yeah, Lambda code scanning value or tag. That's why it detected this one. It detected the tag and it excluded from scanning. So that's all, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is how you can just scan your Lambda code for any kind of exploitation with CodeGuru library, and it has three flavors: Java, JavaScript, and Python. So this is very much effective from a security standpoint, from an overall organization, and from a particular account as well. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comment section how do you feel about AWS Inspector and this exploitation. What I also feel about CodeGuru library, as it is not detecting all the vulnerabilities. If this is the same case for you, let me know in the comment section as well. So I hope this video is informative for you. Please like, share, and subscribe my channel for more upcoming content. So till then, thank you. Take care. Bye bye.